Snapchat?
I don't use Snapchat at all. It's like asking me if I use Instagram. I don't use that either.
If you're over 34, are you over 34? If you're over 34 and
You don't need
you
to
have
know
an
my
Android
age.
phone, I don't need to know it. Well, welcome to Salient Points number 3. We're here back again. Thanks for joining us. Salient Points 3.
Good
we're a little
job.
sleepy, man. I've been up for a while, but we'll get it going.
Anyways, my name is
my
Dalen Kirkwood. We got Carlos Macias here. We're over
Thank
here
you.
ready to
Thank you
chat.
for introducing. We're ready to get going. Big news, man. Big news. So we got this whole deal with EA developers getting death threats from people based on the. If you guys been listening to the podcast, we've been on this for a little bit about loot crates and that kind of thing, microtransactions and recurrent consumer spending that we spoke about last time. But I know one of the things is the EA developer that's working on the Battlefront 2 game is they're on Twitter, and one guy said he has 7 death threats and 1,600 personal attacks. And I know EA went to Reddit and actually gave a response to how they're dealing with the feedback, and that they're in constant update mode, which is the most downvoted thing on Reddit. It was about 87,000 downvotes, and then a few hours later it went up to like 450,000 downvotes. So it's pretty big, as far as Reddit is concerned. But here's the question, Dalen. What is the best way for fans to respond to developer, publisher, design decisions such as the loot crate and this monetization of the games, as far as for example, Battlefront 2 and the way they're doing it?
Well, first off, the main thing I want to say about it is that regardless of a change that a company is making, it's just a game. There is no reason you should be posing all these death threats. That is unnecessary, period. But in regards to them actually, keeping open communication to actually get feedback from their customers and consumers, I guess one way that Bungie did it was to keep a Twitter open or something like that, so they could actually continuously get feedback and respond back to customers, so they could actually give their own response in due time.
And as a fan, you feel passionate about these games, right? You feel like they're your babies, or you invest all this time to play these games. So you understand how people get invested in all this, right? And they have a game. The thing with Battlefront 2 is that it's actually out early release. If you have an Xbox One, you can actually play the game, and people are getting a taste of it already. Yeah. So they're getting a sense of the progression and how you play the game and what you're expected to do and how you're going to advance in it. So people, the concern to me is that fans need to channel that in a positive way. Instead of well, I'm going to kill you, or death threats or whatever it is, that they took it to the next level of where relax, let us know, we're listening. And obviously EA is listening, because they have this thing where you unlock the heroes, right? So you unlock whoever the characters are in the game, which I don't know if they have Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, that was one of the big problems, though.
So they did listen. They brought it down by about 75%, right? Which is funny. It's all right, they said you keep talking and we'll keep listening, was the thing that EA said. And it's one of those things where all right, we're gonna make it less grindy, and you're gonna be able to get to your heroes faster. So we'll, what do you? Did you play the last Battlefront?
I did play Battlefront. I owned it for a good amount of time, and then I got bored of it.
Was it grindy? It was sort of.
Oh yeah, it was
had
extremely
sort of
grindy. You didn't care about their whatever they thought was a campaign at the time, and I guess they didn't have a campaign.
Yeah, it was non-existent. Basically,
it was non-existent. The whole game was basically you grind your character, you gain your levels, and later on you could purchase other sprites.
It was really the worst excuse for a campaign, right? Because they made a multiplayer-only game for the most part, and then they're like, you know what? We didn't throw any campaigns, so we'll call this a campaign. It has no cutscenes, no anything. Well, actually, there was a few cutscenes.
They had little cutscenes.
They had little cutscenes,
stories,
but it wasn't a full story. It was we have these assets. We'll bundle them together. You could play co-op. That's an exciting feature. But it was really wave mode, right? It was
that's all it was. It was wave mode.
It was 5 missions.
You could fight against each other in these particular campaigns.
It was 5 missions where it's basically just waves after each other. This is not a campaign. So now with Battlefront 2, they're actually at least making an effort.
Yeah, with Battlefront 2, they're actually making the campaign and that's a huge jump for them. But one of their biggest issues with this 75% reduction of the price is the fact that
now, to be clear, 75% reduction of in-game
currency,
what you're grinding out, what you're using to unlock these characters.
So they reduced the price, I think, down to like 15,000 or 10,000 points in-game in order to be able to purchase one of your favorite heroes. And in this case, apparently people were upset that originally it took you like 40 hours to grind out.
That's right. Yeah,
Darth Vader.
They added it up, and they were like, it takes a really long time to do this.
Even worse, even with the point reduction actually happening, you could buy points with real cash
which
money.
Is one of the things that they mentioned. They're like, well, we're trying to consider new players, and we're trying to consider like their fun. It's like, I mean, it's probably pay to win in a sense.
It is
right?
pay to win. That's all it is.
As tolerable, as quote unquote tolerable as they make it out to be, it's like, come on, man. It's like, let's make it a fun experience. It shouldn't take that long to unlock these characters.
No,
right?
It shouldn't even be a question of being able to buy currency if you're using that same type of point system to purchase your characters.
Yeah.
Just period. Because if, again, good example, Destiny 2, is they created that new system where the Eververse, where you have certain bright points or whatever the hell those are, you could burn.
Is this a complaint about the Eververse? Is that where it's
No. This is actually a good point for the Eververse, with the exception that all the stuff that they do is cosmetic. Where versus Battlefront 2, they're trying to actually give you points to buy and get stuff that can give you an edge in battle.
And in Destiny 2, the thing with Destiny 2 is like it doesn't unlock until you hit level 20. Yeah, you don't get to a point where you would even pay to win or pay for whatever, because it's not pay to win in Destiny. It's really all cosmetic, which I think it's the perfect way to do.
But let's say it wasn't cosmetic though. They have the coins that you actually have to pay money for in order to get stuff.
And Battlefront.
No, I'm talking about Destiny 2. I'm talking about Destiny 2. Let's say, for example, that the thing that some of those things weren't cosmetic. So they have the silver that you have to buy, and you could only use silver to actually get things. And then they have the other points to get other things.
In theory, but that's not what Destiny 2 does.
No, that's not what Destiny 2 does. Just in theory.
The problem with Battlefront 2 is that
they're
is actually
doing it, but they're like all the points are the same thing. You're paying money for the points that you could just earn in game. Yeah. So I think that's just a stupid thing to do outright, and that's gonna piss off any consumer.
Listening. They're saying they're listening.
They're listening. They're messing it up.
Listening. So we'll see what they do eventually with that. But it's one of those things that it's the company just has to figure it out. But it's we have to deal with it.
They're gonna have a fire lit up under their butts.
What do we got next, Dalen?
We got the fact that EA, same company, still out there doing the most. They're out there doing the most. They ended up apparently dropping Visceral Games, which was kind of a crazy thing to me when I heard about it at the time. And I guess they picked up Respawn for $400 million. And
it's $450 million. No, it's $400 million, which is kind of like we're gonna buy this company out, which is Respawn, the makers of Titanfall 2, and it can go up to $450 million if they hit certain incentives, like say sometimes they're tied into Metacritic scores and that kind of thing. So if they hit certain milestones and that kind of thing, but. But one of the things, it's like there was a sequence of events, right? That what was the sequence of events? I know this is kind of a stipulation on Jason Schreier from Kotaku, but what did he say that was kind of what he sees that the sequence of events was?
It was kind of like a little 4-step process, being that he said that Nexon makes an offer to Respawn per their documentation sent to Kotaku. Then right after that, EA has the first right to refusal per those documentation and can make an offer on that studio. Then, for some reason, which
it's clear, it's apparent now.
It's very apparent in this case, but at the time it was just this confusing thing that we were like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. They dropped Visceral Games.
Shut down. You keep saying
I'm
drop,
but drop.
It's shut down.
They shut down Visceral Games. They dispersed them.
Shut down.
Visceral Games, the people that made the Dead Space series, and I was sad to hear them go, but then they decided that they were just gonna pick up and buy. They bought Respawn.
We're back to Respawn.
So, given EA's history, because we know they've done a lot of stuff in the past, and they have their own little studio buyouts. Are you worried about the future of Respawn?
I am. I am in the sense that there's two aspects to this, right? There's the aspect that if you think about the gamers, right, which is I try to keep an open mind on both ends. I am a gamer myself, and I also buy used from time to time. But so Respawn, the main thing on Respawn is the concerning part is on the artistic front of it, where this team is getting bought out and eventually is gonna brought into this kind of corporate structure, which is the EA structure, where before they were independent.
And they were making their Titanfall. And
they
Titanfall
were making
2.
Titanfall, which was a deal that they actually made with EA. So EA actually kind of gave them the money to build it, but they still retained either the rights or they had ownership, a certain amount of ownership, right, into it. So now they kind of said, here you go, $400 million. You own Respawn and you own Titanfall, and we'll work under you. And I guess one of the conditions was that they're still going to work on a Titanfall 3, and they're going to work on a Star Wars game, which Respawn must have shown them something amazing to be like, we're going to shutter Visceral Games and we're going to take your guys' prototype. I don't know if that's what happened, right? That's just assuming that maybe they showed them a prototype. It's like, this is what we can do about Star Wars. And they're like, we'll give it to you, right? Well, whatever it is. And I think they're going to do a VR type of game as well.
Well, the way you make it seem like they pretty much already had Respawn under their thumb, and there's not going to be too much changes to Respawn actually going forward. It just sounds like they're just building on it.
They were independent.
They gave them money and said, all right, you're doing great, so let's make it official. Come over to our side. We'll give you $450 million to do it. Whereas they wanted to put all their resources towards Respawn by dropping Visceral.
Now the worry is that this does happen. Visceral Games was shut down. It was under the EA umbrella, and it got shut down. So there is a history of them doing all this, where it's like they just shut down studios that they buy over time. So I mean, on the gamer side, it kind of sucks because there's sort of less of an authorship, less at stake, I guess you could say, that Respawn has. But on the business side, it's like I think it's Vince Zampella, that the owner of the company, that's his golden parachute, man.
That's his golden parachute. Let's do it. Windfall
he's like,
right here.
If this doesn't work out, if this shut down, then he can just he has the pedigree. He's like, he worked on Call of Duty games. He worked on Medal of Honor or whatever it was, and I created Titanfall. So now he could go on, and we could, we should still have a relatively peaceful transition. But that's the hope. But it kind of looks bad that EA is like, we're shutting that one down. Now we're buying this one.
Well, how do you feel about the shutdown of Visceral Games?
I think we haven't.
No, we haven't talked about this at all.
So Visceral Games is they worked on Dead Space, and it's unfortunate that Amy Hennig was like the writer, so they brought her over from Uncharted series. She was an integral part of Uncharted, and they're like, I think they had beef or something like that at Naughty Dog, and there was a fallout, right?
Okay.
But she came over to Visceral Games, and it's kind of like, she's creating this amazing game, and apparently it was an incredible game, like a bounty hunters in space, and it's a ragtag group of kind of a Han Solo type of story.
What?
To it. Yeah, it was gonna be good. It was gonna be good.
Oh, you're talking about for the Star Wars game? I was
the Visceral Star Wars game.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because we were talking about Dead Space, and then you went to Star Wars game.
So it was gonna be this incredible game, but like I said, I don't know, man. I think either EA commissioned Respawn, or Respawn was like, look what we can do with Star Wars, and because it seems very coincidental, right, that they shut down Visceral Games and then they buy Respawn. So it's kind of like,
do you think Respawn is going to create a Star Wars game?
They already said it.
Oh, they straight up said it.
They said, we're creating a Star Wars game, and I believe that's a VR experience as well. I don't know if it's in the Star. I believe.
My apologies. My question was going to be, do you think they're going to create a good Star Wars game?
I think they got it in them. I mean, Titanfall 2, I know people really love the campaign of Titanfall 2. I think it was all right. People are like, it's incredible, the single player campaign. I think they were just victims of low expectations, man, and it blew them away.
Ooh, so that being said, is with this new supposed Star Wars game coming out, there was also the talks of a possible what was it? Xbox? No, not Xbox. Yeah, it was Xbox 2 and PS5.
PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2, Xbox 1, 2, Xbox 1.5, whatever they call it, right? But yeah, it was the Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, I believe he's French. He said, as Sony launched PlayStation 4 Pro last year and Microsoft Xbox One X this year, we think we still have a minimum of 2 years in front of us before something new is coming. So that's from the Ubisoft CEO. He's not really a platform holder, but I have a couple questions for you. Which console are you more excited for, and is it 2019 too soon?
Well, honestly, I would want to know what kind of games are going to drop for these systems because we saw the huge jump between PS3 and PS4. Same thing goes between Xbox 360 and Xbox One for me. I didn't see a huge jump in much for that, with the exception of maybe space. A couple of things that they tweaked for graphics to try and catch up to
Did
PS4.
you say space? What do you mean space?
Space, like they had the Xbox 360 had their issues with space when
Hard drive space.
Yeah, the hard drive space.
Oh,
the hard drive space.
what?
Yeah,
All right, I was like space.
hard drive space. Okay, I didn't specify my terms.
Depicting space.
Yeah, they had issues with hard drive space. I know that PS4 also had that issue to begin with, but actually no, they didn't have that issue to begin with. PS3 had that issue, but they fixed that when they got to PS4. So coming to PS5 and Xbox One X, I don't really know what to expect, especially since we're still going through this kind of golden age of the PS4, whereas Xbox One are really the only ones that are having their issues.
I mean that's what they expect to do, right? I mean, Microsoft is saying that they're doubling down on having internal development. It's like, we've released the Xbox One X in the world. Okay, that's out in the world. Now we can focus on internal development. But it's like, if you didn't have it 2 years ago, if you weren't already working on it, I don't understand. Like, you're barely starting it. Yeah. So whatever they're starting, we're not going to see for a couple years.
Yeah, this actually feels like they're just biding their time.
Well, it's just what Yves Guillemot is.
You love that name, Guillemot.
I believe that's how you say it. I hope I'm saying it right. But that's just what he thinks. He thinks we're a couple years out. But I think he's also basing this on the fact that we're kind of moving into more of a cell phone adoption rate of these consoles, which is like funny to. I think Aaron Greenberg, the marketing director of Xbox, he actually mentioned it, that they even used it internally. That it's like, did you think that people would be refreshing their phones every couple years? And it's like, that's kind of what's been brought into the console world, where now we have Xbox One X, we have the Xbox One X 1.5 or whatever it is. So, we got the iPhone S, we got the iPhone numbered version. So I think that's going forward, and these consoles are going to be, they're not going to be as big of a deal, I guess. You're just going to notice them disappear over time. So I'm thinking maybe we're leaning towards maybe a 3 or 4 year cycle where, so right now we're in the Xbox One X refresh and the PS4 Pro refresh moment in time. And then the next one, which might be, PlayStation 5, Xbox 2, Xbox 1.5, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Then the last one will fall off, So say the PS4 will fall off, or the original Xbox will fall off. I mean, it's just a little too soon. It's like you said, it's like it's kind of gonna depend on, what games are being developed. We have to see a jump. We have to see a jump in these systems before we're actually excited to see them. 2019, I don't know. 2019, that's what are we on? 2017. It's a couple years.
What are we on?
I don't know. I don't know. I think maybe we get the PS5 2020, man. I think it's 2020. The last console cycle was about 7 years. I think it's reasonable to say 2010. Get that new refresh, right?
You like your little refreshes. Yeah. That actually reminds me of the fact that EA also, EA loves their stuff. EA is, I guess there was a rumor that they were thinking about switching Madden and FIFA from a yearly release to just doing a type of annual update type thing. So there was a quote.
Well, it wasn't a rumor exactly.
No, it wasn't specifically a rumor. There was a quote. I'm not sure who the quote was by. It was by CEO Andrew Wilson. There is a world where it gets easier and easier to move that code around, where we may not have to do an annual release. That's what he told TV Bloomberg or Bloomberg
TV.
He
said we can really think about those games as a 365-day live service.
And for this live service, would it be a good idea to have live updates instead of a yearly release?
They've been doing yearly releases. You get the Madden 15, 16, 17, 18, forever, the FIFA updates. It's really they have to figure out how to make money off of this. But it goes back to the loot crate and to this other stuff that we talk about.
But which would you prefer?
I would honestly I would probably play their games more if it was a free game, which is kind of goes to what kind of customer, right? Like, we contradict each other and we're hypocritical in the way that we might say we want things a certain way, but we do something else. So in this, what this would be like the free to play model, which the phone is all over that, right? The phone has been about free to play. What happens with free to play is that you get the app, you get the game or whatever it is for free, and then you're like, I'm enjoying this. I'm gonna spend $1 to make it go faster before I could get my next turn, or to buy this fantasy league or whatever situation they have in these games. So I think more people would play them and they would make more money if they could figure out that system. But they've been doing it forever. It's a consistent, whatever they sell of Madden, it's a consistent 3, 4, 5 million a year, plus whatever they put into the version of fantasy team that they have, the FIFA that makes so much money. We talked about that before. So I would prefer if it was a free game that I get to try out and play. But if you're a sports fan, you probably want it to be a $60 game where it's like you have all the teams. Maybe if it's a free
have
thing,
all the teams, you have your entire roster that's there already. I was already kind of set at Madden and FIFA and NBA 2K either way, because they had this thing where every year.
Your mic is fine. It's all right.
Thanks, my friend.
Technical issues. Okay.
They had this thing where every year they were releasing games, but it was basically just a cookie cutter game with a slight update with a new roster. You were basically just buying a new roster. So really, that's actually the main reason why I stopped buying sports games. Like, I'll go to a friend's house and I'll play a sports game with them, but I will not buy one.
Games were simpler. Sports games were simpler too, in the sense that I think they started to get complicated. They started as like, you can hit the ball in a certain way, you can pitch the ball in a certain way, you can throw, you can lob it in a certain way. I think they just got more complicated, right? Where before it was kind of like anybody can play it. If they really were casual games, they're to a point where I think the last thing I tried to play was like an NBA 2K game, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. And I think Madden is much the same way, where it's like you have to understand Madden to play Madden. Where it's like, Call of Duty is sort of the same way too, where it's like you have to understand the perk system, you have to have this come into the game with an understanding of.
Wait, no, you don't. You don't have to have an understanding at all. You just need to know the mechanics of the controller.
Yeah, mechanics-wise. Mechanics-wise.
Of the controller. You don't need to know anything about the game. You just need to know, am I throwing the ball or am I running the ball?
But what I'm saying is you didn't have as many inputs before. You didn't have as many as like,
yeah,
this
you got
is
more
a certain
choices
way I want to
now.
hit it, which has made the games inherently more complicated to get into. Whereas before, like say a 1994 NHL SNES game or a Genesis game, where it's like you can get the hang of it.
Thanks for bringing up NHL, which I see very little
as an example, because now just games are a little more complicated. So you think about it. If they were free, I would consider playing it some more. We do have another thing. This was a little more serious, I guess, but we did have an IGN issue where there was Alana Pierce on Twitter. She did say that there was a sexual harassment issue, which we've been hearing about lately. She said there won't be a daily fix today because a large group of IGN employees have refused to work until the company issues a statement apology regarding what happened to Kaylee Plage. And this is somebody that she had an interaction with the previous manager at the company, and they kind of have each sides of it. And at least IGN did come out with their statement, and they said, we failed them. We failed both sides. We failed her, and we failed the person the manager that was kind of sexually harassed her. And it was more kind of like a sort of like, it wasn't too graphic as the stuff that you hear from Louis C.K. and all this other stuff, but it was kind of like suggestive things. Like,
well, that's only because we don't have any real details of what actually happened for that period. But the fact that any type of sexual harassment happened in the workspace and never got around to it until after the person actually left, that's just a huge fail right off the bat.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and even IGN doesn't really get too much into it, but one of the things they say is like when the women made management and human resources aware of the situation involving a now former employee, those women in the estimation of the IGN team did not get the respect and care that they deserved as IGN employees and as people. That system, plainly put, failed them. It especially failed them, but it also failed all of us. So it's kind of like, it's very general statement of what happened. And I think it's part of like, legally they don't want to kind of commit
they just
to
put
anything,
out a little statement,
which is a lot of the nonsense you see, right? That is like, okay, all
yeah,
right,
but did she ever get compensation for what actually happened?
I think she eventually left. She eventually left to get a GameStop job, and she was no longer at IGN. But
it sounds like they additionally failed her, that she felt the need to move.
She felt the need to leave. Yeah, she felt the need to.
Well, do you feel like IGN actually did enough, and just in regards to them being a company?
Well, at the time, as far as at the time, I don't know. Of course, they didn't do enough then. They said as much. As far as their response to this, let's hope that they do pull through. They said they're gonna have some training. They're gonna kind of, they're gonna kind of realign, realign their
trying to
their
get their things
human
in ducks in a row,
ducks in a row to figure out, what are we gonna do, this, because this is serious, and this is something that's is prevailing across all the industries. It started with Weinstein, and now it's everywhere. You see it now with Louis C.K. and comedy stuff. So it's one of those things that it's good that it is coming up. It's coming to the forefront, and we are speaking about it, and there will be a sort of a shift towards the better.
And I'm thinking, who's next?
I mean,
who's next?
I mean, as as onlookers, as part of, like, we're not actually part of that situation. It's kind of like, what? Yeah, what is next? What is
who's
yet
gonna
to
be called out
discovered?
next?
Which is like, the people coming out kind of gives others courage to come out and be like, you know what? I did have a situation. It was weird at the time. Sometimes I think, like in this situation, I think it was more of a weird thing because, from what I understand, is that the guy was kind of egging her on. It was kind of like, I used to go all night. I would like to have another night like that. So it was kind of like I don't think it ever got to a point, or as far as what's understood, what's public, is it didn't get too far. But it was still, if you're uncomfortable, you should be in a comfortable work environment.
Yeah, you need to be in a comfortable work environment in order for your work to function properly. Yeah. So
moving on.
Just trying to moving on. But last statement in regards to that is, period. Any kind of sexual harassment is not good at all, and you should always, in any business, find a way to make sure that your environment is safe for all people.
Now, I will say we did talk about this on our show that'll be up tomorrow. Viral play uncensored. It'll be a little controversial, but we try to do it justice, I guess, as much as we could. If you guys want to tune in to that.
All right. So now I'll jump into the next subject for you. Being that they're going to have the Game Awards over here on December 7th. Yeah, Jeff Keighley. Jeff Keighley. Why not? In that they're going to be introducing live games into their whole awards part. Yeah. So what they actually stated is something we've been thinking about a lot. Some games are now like seasons of a TV show versus a finite piece of I can't read sometimes. Finite piece of content. Our live games award. I cannot talk now. I've messed myself up. So me being tongue tied. Live games award rewarding loot crate nonsense. Do you
yeah. So what the question you're asking is so is the live games like you're giving out an award for live games is like you're encouraging monetization and loot crates and all that, but I don't know. We'll see what they do. I mean, I'm assuming this means live games sort of like Destiny.
No,
Destiny would fall in line into this because it's a live game.
No, that's not what they're talking about though. Or at least that's not my belief of what they're talking about, but I guess I'd have to research that part more. But when it came to seasons, give you an example, Street Fighter V, their characters come out in seasons. It's still a seasonal thing.
But you're getting caught up in the word seasons. What he's saying is like games are like seasons where you're playing it over an extended amount of time, which would Destiny 2 fall into, and maybe even a Call of Duty or something that has an extended. Yeah, but you're also focusing on
loot crates. It doesn't mean that it has to be loot crates. It could be characters being dropped, chapters being dropped, new pieces of story being dropped over that period of time, loot crates being introduced in some of these aspects. So I'm actually very interested to see how they're going to put that into awards.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, right? We'll see, like, are you considering the Destiny 2 model? Are you considering the Street Fighter model? What is the live games, and we'll see which one wins out. And it would be very upsetting for all these people that are shooting death threats to EA for it to be Battlefront 2 is the winner.
Oh, so well.
We'll so now then Final Fantasy 15's Noctis is going to be joining Tekken 7 as a playable character in 2018. And Noctis is they've added Akuma for Street Fighter, and they're supposed to have a Fatal Fury boss, Geese Howard. Added on to it. And Noctis will have his own stage. It's actually going to be at the Hammerhead gas station and body shop, which we know to be an inappropriately dressed woman at the right. What was she? There was.
You're talking about Sydney.
Yeah, it was Sydney, which is the female version of Sid, right? Which is in every character. No, I know a little bit. No, there's two.
There are two Sids in that game. Okay. And it's not a spoiler. When you see Sydney, you meet Sid. He's the old guy sitting in the chair. But fact being is that Noctis being introduced into the Tekken universe.
How do you feel about these third-party characters being added to Tekken?
Ooh.
I didn't mean to shut you down.
You shut me down like, ooh, that is a good question. Because I've been a fan of Tekken ever since Tekken 1 came out. Okay. And generally they've kept...
Was Eddie Gordo?
Eddie Gordo was not an original character. But
that's how we know. That's your cred. That's your cred. And we know you're serious about it.
But as time went on, they eventually started adding some good characters, some cheap characters, and then I guess once Soul Calibur started doing their thing, they decided to start doing crossovers. But with this Tekken 7, they're trying to revamp the Tekken system and make a bit of a comeback. Adding Akuma definitely was its own little thing because I was waiting for Tekken X Street Fighter to do their opposite crossover.
We're still waiting on one of these, right?
Yeah, we're waiting on one of these.
We got one. We're still waiting on the opposite.
So this is like a taste of that. Adding Akuma to it, that was just a big drop in it. Adding Geese Howard to it.
You didn't get Tekken. You don't have Tekken 7 in your possession, right?
I have Tekken 6, but I don't have Tekken 7 in my
Will this
possession.
convince you to pick up Tekken 7 when
I was already convinced. I was already convinced. I just have been too lazy to go and get it.
I did play the campaign. I think you would be surprised to know I did play the campaign in Tekken 7. It was alright. It was decent.
It was actually pretty good.
It was okay. It was a decent little.
And they'll leave you hanging. They like to tell you some of the backstory.
We get these story modes in games such as Injustice 2, where it's like you get used to good stories, so you play Tekken. It's like, it's run of the mill.
All right, you enjoyed the Injustice 2 storyline.
Those are good. Those were good stories. They started with Mortal Kombat 9. We started with Mortal Kombat 9. So
well, speaking of Injustice, they also got these new DLC characters for Injustice as well. They got the Atom coming. They got the Enchantress coming. Right. And I figured you'd like to actually touch base on the fact that they got the Ninja Turtles coming.
Yeah, they got Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael. That's coming as part of the Fighter Pack 3 DLC, right?
Yeah, but he's got all four turtles coming to this game. I mean, I would have been less surprised if it was just one turtle, but all four turtles. Okay. I mean, how do you feel about the Ninja Turtles just being added to the game in the first place?
I think it's pretty cool. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the Ninja Turtles. So it's kind of like, maybe what do you think about I think the more interesting aspect to this is, are we actually getting 4 different Ninja Turtles, or are we getting one? And they transform, or they come in, kick in from the sides. Now it's Donatello. Now it's Michelangelo. Now it's Raphael.
I doubt NetherRealm would ever do something like that.
It's one character. No. I don't think it's 4 bonus characters.
No, I feel like it would be 4 bonus characters. So you have your choice between the swords, the staff, the Kasai. I honestly,
the way this thing kind of. I want to come back to this. We're gonna have to revisit this. But I actually might think it's one character, and you can maybe we've got to place a bet on this at some point. We'll have to.
We're gonna have to look this up.
But I actually think because they haven't really said. They just said, "Here's the Ninja Turtles." I have a fear. I don't know if it's a fear. I think I would be excited to be like, you have one Ninja Turtle and then separate moves, and they come and team up and.
Well, that can happen, yes, because I know there's that one Bumblebee girl that has somebody else behind her.
So that's one.
Got a little DLC content coming for
that's one little piece of DLC content. Another thing is Battlefront 2 by the end of the year. So that's releasing this week. Friday's releasing. So next month, December 13th, it's getting the Last Jedi content. The new movie's coming out, so they kind of want to get that out there, right? It's going to add Finn, Captain Phasma, which she didn't have a big role in the original, and she's like the... She makes quite a presence. Her presence known in Game of Thrones.
No, she made her presence known in the movie as well, because they actually had a whole section centralized around her character in that silver suit.
In
Star Wars the movie.
She didn't have that big of a scene. She
Well,
had
she didn't have
she
a
looked
massive
cool,
role.
She whatever.
But she was the one that really kept.
Wasn't she one that got
I
hit
forgot
upside
John
her
Boyega.
head?
Yeah.
She got hit upside. So how is that her
Well,
big
she
role?
got hit upside the head. You know that she was oppressing John Boyega through the movie.
So
and on top of that, I
but
guess
that's assumed. That's assumed. That's assumed. You're not
that
actually
is not
seeing
assumed.
it
You
in
can
the movie.
tell that he's been
Okay,
oppressed.
But, you know. So you're getting Finn. You're getting Captain Phasma. You're getting 2 multiplayer locations, a crate, Dakar, and you're also getting the Resistance's Tali Lintra's A-Wing.
Yeah.
So will this content get you excited about The Last Jedi going into? It's supposed to be released.
I am excited for the Battlefront 2 game itself because they're dropping a lot of content into this game, and it's going to be this whole wide range of content.
Are you picking up Battlefront 2?
I am not.
Okay, good job.
But I do. I have been following it though.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I know. Because I'm a fan of Star Wars, but I feel like I'm not sure how the game is going to roll out after Battlefront. Battlefront 1 made me wane off of it so quickly with its needing to level the whole time, and I don't know if I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to feel.
I'll put it to you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to a Redbox on Friday, pick it up, play the campaign, and put it right back into its Redbox slot, and I will be done with it. It's supposed to be like 5 or 6 hours, which, you know, of course the fanboys online are going to be like, it's only 5 or 6 hours. Like, I'm good. I'm good.
That's all you need.
That's all I need because it's going to get returned pretty quickly.
Okay, well, another quick subject that I wanted to bring up here was Destiny 2 new enhancements for the Xbox One X when that comes out for that, and the PS4 Pro having adaptive 4K. There was a statement made.
Well, the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One is getting HDR. 4K support, and and the PS4 is getting adaptive 4K, which this is gonna release with Curse of Osiris on December 5th. But the funny part to me is adaptive 4K is a key word.
So what exactly do they mean by adaptive 4K?
Because for Xbox One X there was no adaptive 4K. It was like 4K, meaning the X1 X is that powerful that it's gonna do native 4K. It's gonna push your 4K. Now, with the adaptive, they didn't really go into it, but it's usually assumed that adaptive 4K means that it's close, but it's going to checker box it or check or whatever they call it to where it looks good, but it's not exactly there. You won't really necessarily notice it unless you're looking for it. But I think the fact that it's getting I do have a PS4 Pro, so the fact that it's getting HDR and it's going to look nicer, whether it's not full K as the Xbox One X is going to be, but it'll look a little nicer. I'm looking forward to it. So when I get back into Destiny, because I've been, on vacation from Destiny, I got
the controller down. You put down your Guardian mantle for a moment.
I put my controller down. December 5th, I'll be back, and it'll look nice and pretty.
That's all you want is you're waiting for
and
that
4K. Which
that
is
expansion.
and related the Xbox One, man. Xbox One X is sold 8,000 consoles, which
8,000.
80,000. Yeah. Sorry about that. The X1 X sells 80,000 consoles, which is the first week of sales on Xbox One is over 80,000 in the UK. And then Aaron Greenberg, which is the head of Xbox Games Marketing, said it's a great initial results, not just in UK, but seeing similar results across Europe. North America numbers much bigger. Amazing first week. So selling well. Apparently it's selling better than the PS4 Pro in that same amount of time. And I think it's one of those things where they went full bore. They said
they went full bore.
You're getting 4K. You're getting a max, and it is the best console out there, better than the PS4 Pro.
Well, I do hope that Xbox can bring themselves back with these sales because, that Xbox One by itself probably didn't do them a lot of good.
They really shot themselves in the foot, man. I mean, you come out with Kinect, you bundle in a Kinect, and I think the Kinect was kind of at the end of his lifespan with the 360. So, you got several issues working against you with the Xbox One X. You bundle it with Kinect, making it $500, and then you add the confusion of is this going to have DRM? Because I've been hearing this is going to have DRM, and I'm going to have to register these discs and all this. So they quickly backtracked off of that and continued on with their lives. And hope, they're coming back. They're still only selling half of what PS4 is selling, but
they're trying. They're trying
their best.
Well, I guess another thing that's going on out there is, or at least that I recently read up on, is that the developer Sledgehammer Apparently, or actually, I should just say the Activision CEO Eric Hirschberg. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
Close enough.
He said Call of Duty World War II's developer Sledgehammer originally wanted to make the sequel to 2014's Advanced Warfare instead of World War II. Now, my question to you is: are you happy they went with the World War II setting?
Yeah. We did talk about it a little bit on a couple episodes ago, but it was just too busy.
It was too busy. It was too much happening.
Were too busy. World War II setting, and I think this is one of those things where it kind of conflicts, right? Developer and publisher conflicts, and the publisher won on this one.
That's right. We were talking about Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare. Right?
Yeah. So the Sledgehammer, which were the developers of Advanced Warfare 2, they were like, we want to make the sequel to that, which I believe. I think that's the one with Kevin Spacey in it. So it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned.
That sigh that came through your teeth.
Kevin Spacey was like the villain in that one. So I think this is one.
I think in some retrospect, people are fine with that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, imagine dealing with all this drama, and it's like I'm not sure. I didn't get to the end of it. It's too busy. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I don't know if I got to the end of it, how the story of Kevin Spacey ended up in that.
Either way it goes, I don't think people are going to drop the game just because Kevin Spacey. It's too late.
No, I know that, but it's so this is one of those moments where the publisher was like, let's bring it back. Let's rein it in. People are not going to be as excited. And World War II, that's we talked about on the last podcast, is selling twice as better as last year's game, Infinite Warfare. So, yeah, if you came out with another Advanced Warfare 2, it's kind of what's really the difference. So I think it's one of those examples where, like, publishers sometimes has a good guidance on things.
Sometimes they're doing it right.
And then another thing, Capcom is planning to release. Oh, this is a rumor. Let's get that out there. This is a rumor. Nobody's confirmed anything, but apparently we might get 2 Ace Attorneys coming to Switch. In the form of, so it's 3 releases as far as the rumor is concerned. Is
little bundles.
2 Ace Attorneys, bundles, compilations. One, the first would be 1, 2, and 3. Then the second compilation would be 4, 5, and 6. So it would be into the next year, 2018. First half you get the first half, and then the next one, and then by the fall of 2018 you're supposed to get a new mainline Ace Attorney in fall of 2018. Did you play the Ace Attorney games? Were you a fan of those?
I wasn't a huge fan of them, but I did get a chance to touch base on like part 3 or something like that.
You did get real. You did not have a DS for the longest time.
I didn't have a DS for the long time, but
You never had a DS.
What? No, I got a DS. I had a regular DS.
3D. Do you have a regular DS?
I had a regular DS, but it broke.
But you did have one.
I did have one. Very short period that I had obtained one. But either way it goes, I didn't plan on picking up an Ace Attorney at Law. I was so busy trying to play Castlevania games.
Those were good. They were
good.
They
Excellent
had
games.
a good run. Circle
but
the Moon.
we're talking about Ace Attorney in this case. For the Ace Attorney games, I feel that they were a fun game by themselves because I got to play a couple of them.
Objection.
We're trying to figure out the truth. It's a little nonsense game that felt like a non-dark version of Danganronpa, if anybody knows what that game is. But I would say if you haven't played them and you plan on playing the new Ace Attorney game that's supposed to be dropping on the Switch, if this really does happen, I would suggest going back and playing these games.
The big deal was that the DS had the stylus, so you could actually go through the puzzles and kind of rotate them around. And because I played the original, like I might have played 1 and 2, I got into them actually. They're pretty funny. The writing is good. The localization is good.
Yeah, but you didn't always need the stylus to play the games. Though.
That was you know what? I think because they started on GBA, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But they brought it over because it was in GBA, I believe, in Japan. So check us on this internet. We might be wrong, but my understanding
you
is
might be wrong. I'm gonna let you take the
my understanding. You're gonna take the fall for this. So from my understanding is that they were GBA originally, and then when they were brought stateside, they wanted to be introduced as part of the DS line. So that is when they introduced like an extra case, I think. Something this is kind of coming into my that I believe it was like an extra case, and that extra case actually required you to kind of rotate with the stylus and try to figure out the puzzle, click around. They're fine games. I don't know if I'll go back to them.
Yeah, no. Well, if for the people that are fans of Ace Attorney at Law and didn't get a chance to play them, this would be a great drop them.
Now, something I will go back to, Dalen. I'm pretty sure you got the story on this.
You got the story on this. I got the gist. Being that Factor 5. Once CX
cancel.
Wants to cancel. Is that what that means?
No, cancel the Wii Rogue Squadron game on Switch.
they canceled the Rogue Squadron game on the Switch. The Factor 5 president, Julian Egbert,
I think it's German. Egbrick, possibly.
Egbrick, said on Nintendo voice chat, I think it's about the willingness of probably spending some time on it. Disney, Lucasfilms playing along with it, and probably EA must be a little in the mix. My immediate dream would be the first port, basically what would had on Rogue Squadron Wii to the Switch. Rogue Squadron Wii pretty much supported every single input device. So in spirit, it's very comparable to what Nintendo did with Mario Odyssey, or even more so Mario Kart. My question to you is, should they release this game? Well, straight up, of course. You didn't see his stern face right now. He propped up. Of course.
You never played the Rogue Squadron games? They were incredible games. They were probably like one of the first games that actually, like, I'm in an X-wing. I'm flying around Tatooine and all these places. I'm wrapping around the machine, the long-legged machine that goes around. Like, they brought you into the world of Star Wars. So, and they talked about it on Nintendo voice chat on the podcast, which you guys should go back and listen to. It's actually pretty good. They interviewed Julian Egbert, and he talked about that they had this game. I think it was in 2009. They had it pretty much ready to go, but for whatever reason, politics or whatever, they didn't release it. But it was better as far as, of course, it's, they say it, right? The developer says the best Rogue Squadron version of it, because in the N64 days, they did Rogue Squadron, but they were kind of, LucasArts didn't trust them. They're like, all right, you got to make an original story. And then they saw what they did with that one, and then the one that came to GameCube, they actually sampled a lot of the missions, the
well, there was another one that came out for the Nintendo 64, though. It wasn't a Rogue Squadron game. It was
Shadows of the Empire. It was a separate
that was what I was in the middle
separate
playing.
thing,
but they still had the whole space battles in it.
They weren't as good. Trust me.
They weren't as good.
You haven't played anything good until Rogue Squadron. But as far as this concerned, I think it's probably like a licensing issue, and if they ever can get around to figuring all that out, right, it's what it's going to come down to, basically. So I know this was something you were interested in, Dalen. You had you looked into Bluehole's new game, which Bluehole, as we know, is the developer, I think it's developer/publisher of PUBG, which is the game that we bring up, all Player Unknown's Battlegrounds. They have a new MMORPG that they're working on called Air. You kind of took a look at the trailer.
Air, I came across the trailer and the little story for it. I looked at some facts for it. I was really trying to figure out what was happening with this game, because it looked very good, because they had a little trailer for it. If you try and look it up just as Air, I don't know if you'll actually find it that way. It's actually called Ascent Infinite Realm. But it's a nice little MMORPG.
Oh, it's an acronym.
Yeah, it's an acronym.
I see what they did there.
So I felt like it could potentially be a great game. The way that I saw the things that were rolling out, being that you get to ride these gigantic mechas with a group of parties. You go to war with friends. You get your cities under attack. Because it's built by PUBG, you build up little fortified houses in the middle of nowhere. I guess that's awesome. I didn't really get a chance to get into Fortnite too much. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to get into Fortnite and PUBG too much on that aspect. But when I was looking at it, it looked like a nice little cross between Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy XIV, Realm Reborn. So seeing how they really roll this out.
What was the last MMORPG you actually got deep into?
Oh, that I got deep into was Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn.
Does this look like it'll scratch that itch? Or
it really does. That's why I'm actually a little excited about it.
I tried Final Fantasy XIV. I was like,
I know you did.
Well, how far did I get? 10 levels? And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore.
You didn't get far enough.
Hopefully, is this like going to be like an action-heavy type of game?
It definitely is. It's not. It's not really turn-based or anything like that. It's not like Final Fantasy XIV where you just sit there and your character swings and maybe you choose an attack. You actually do active attacking.
This is something that so Bluehole, like they actually they have a separate division for PUBG now, so it's a separate thing. So this is. I'm guessing they're big enough to They're branching out, so we'll see what they do, right? They're only going to come out with one map like they did with PUBG and wait forever.
No.
What I'm saying is that this is their expertise. We have one map, early access. We are still in early access 3 years later, and we're going to release early access on the Xbox as well.
I don't think they've officially announced a beta for their game yet, but as soon as that one comes out, I'm definitely going to try it. Definitely going to be in that beta.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're coming down to near the end of our
little escapade.
Our escapade. I guess that's what you can call it. Really quick, the Ni no Kuni 2 game that, to me, unfortunately got delayed from January 19th to March 9th. I was a little sad to hear that. It's like 2 months, and people already waited a long time just to see a follow-up to Ni no Kuni, which the first one was...
Yeah, but who is... Studio Ghibli, they're not working on it.
Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki?
They're not working on it anymore.
They still took the animation, though, and
they
swooped the animation's already part of it. It's in there, it's implemented, and they completely changed the story. It looks completely
I would
different.
say it's unfortunate that you don't get to play it. I mean, what else are you going to play in January, I guess? So maybe that's why it's upsetting for you. But you know what I don't have to wait till January for? Rocket League.
Oh, man.
Rocket League.
You threw that one in there real quick.
So this Rocket League on Switch. Which is funny that they brought out, and they're like, it's funny that like they said it's a 720p docked and then like 526p undocked, and I was like, that's interesting. I'm still gonna get it. I'm ready. I should have it in my hands by the time this is released on Tuesday. We're recording on Monday.
That's gonna suck your life away.
It really will, because it's portable, and I tether crazy.
What about Monopoly?
It takes an hour, man.
It takes an hour. I'm good with that
game.
Just turn off the quick dice.
Yeah, Rocket League is very quick. I'm gonna tether everywhere. I'm gonna be at church. I'm gonna get a 5-minute match of Rocket League.
In between their conversations.
I'm quite pumped.
The priest is gonna be very confused about what you're doing in that chair.
I mean, he'll know what I'm doing. I'm playing Rocket League.
You're gonna let him know. Be like, son, what are you doing? I'm playing Rocket League.
We'll see you guys next time at again, this is Carlos Macias. Find me at Duce Clean on Twitter.
You got your own website now.
Dalen, where can we find you?
Dalen Kirkwood. You can find me at on Twitter at _Zacia_. I'm gonna spell that for you again. XEXIA.
Oh, double underscore.
That's right.
Eventually you'll start tweeting, right? One of these days.
I did start tweeting. You just don't follow me.
Oh.
Good job.
Awkward.
I'm gonna be somebody tonight. I'm gonna be somebody tonight.